Are you constantly feeling like you're managing expectations? You try to implement decisions that you are not part of while explaining the impacts to your team?
Yeah, and you're translating strategy into action while trying also to protect your team from overload. And you are expected to represent your team's reality upwards, but at the same time trying to managing it downwards. Many leaders actually tell us, I feel like I'm constantly torn and in the middle of things, trying to keep everyone happy. And that's exactly what people mean by leading in a sandwich position.
Exactly. Welcome to The Leadership Effect. I'm Camilla.
And I'm Catherine. This is where we talk about leadership, how it really happens and how it really shows up. Not the polished version of what it should be like, but how it is. The messy parts, the good parts, and the ugly parts.
Exactly. And today we're talking about leading in a sandwich position. And that is kind of the space between senior leadership and your team. It's between strategy and execution, and it's between, being responsible, but not always having the full authority.
Yeah, and I would like to reframe that actually, because this role isn't about being stuck in the sandwich like a piece of cheese that can't get anywhere. It's when it's handled well, it's actually about being organizational savvy, understanding how the organization really works, how you lead within it without losing yourself. And the skill is really useful for leaders as they're navigating the organization and their goals and their team's expectations.
Yeah, and we're not talking about politics or manipulation here.
No,
right?
Definitely not.
We're talking about navigating the system, and that's something slightly differently. And we're talking about it in a way to do it with integrity, with clarity, and with confidence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest, this feels really hard. Leaders are often in the middle of it. They expect to deliver decisions that they didn't shape, explain changes they don't fully agree with or even fully understand sometimes, right? And they trying to absorb the frustration from both sides, from below, because so much expectation is put on the team, but also from above, why things not moving fast enough. And some people just say kind of like, I'm feeling like I'm buffering all the stress, and over time that becomes really exhausting.
Yeah, and we've talked to many leaders in that position.
Yeah.
And yes, it is exhausting. And what makes it even harder is kind of that authority is often unclear. So they're accountable for the outcomes, but decision rights are kind of fuzzy, at least.
Yeah.
And we see this a lot in matrix organizations, and especially during transformations. Like, leaders end up negotiating constantly.
Yeah, and I remember working with a leader who clearly said to me, I don't agree with this decision. How the hell am I going to be going to my team and showing up and tell them this is what we decided, I'm fully behind this decision, but actually I'm not?
Yeah. So they're kind of in this squeeze between what senior leaders want, or what the organization want, I have to say, and then what their team can actually deliver on, and what systems and processes actually allow, right?
Yeah, and I think this is where I want to do reframing again. You are actually, when you are in this position, you're not actually powerless. You are actually in quite a strategic position, because you lend how some of the decisions that are done upstairs as if they were sitting up, you see how they land in reality, where things get stuck, where things are working really well, and you see the gap between what leaders' intentions are and what the team is really experiences. And then that is a really incredibly valuable position to be in, but also perspective you can give.
Yeah, it definitely is, but you kind of need to know how to use it, right? So organizational savvy is kind of about understanding how decisions really gets made.
And also how to move it forward then.
And who influences as well as a part of it. And that can be formal influencers, or it can be informal ones.
Yeah.
And then, when to push and when to align and when to pause.
Yeah. So you are at a critical point basically in place where it's about where you help moving the system forward or the decision forward without burning bridges and losing trust at the same time. So you kind of like at the segue.
Exactly.
And importantly, you need to do it without becoming cynical or disengage yourself, because that is something that your team will see.
Yeah. I mean, it is a tough position. It really is. And managing up is often when leaders feel the most pressure. Yeah. And then, some of the patterns that we see over and over again is, leaders softening bad news to senior leaders or over-promising because of their team, because they don't want to appear difficult. And I've heard that so many times. It's like, I'm just going to fix it in the background because I don't want to be seen as negative. Because reality is, if you're shouting, this is not working, we cannot do this, there's a risk that it can negatively impact your career, right?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, when you are softening that message upwards, that can quite backfire quite dramatically, because senior leaders then make decisions based on wrong or incomplete information, and therefore that could lead that timeline slip up, and then everyone goes into this firefighting mode where we becoming really reactive. So managing upwards well isn't just about pleasing people and looking out for yourself and your own career. It's about helping senior leaders understand what is going on below so that they can make better decisions.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it can sound something like, with our current capacity, we can deliver the scope that you're asking for within, say, Q2. But it means deprioritizing these two other things because I need those resources to deliver on time. And, it's not about saying no. It's about making the consequences visible, right?
Yeah.
So again, you can choose a realistic decision instead of being too optimistic.
Yeah, and organizational savvy leaders, what they are really good is not just saying like, oh, it doesn't work, this doesn't bring us forward. It's about bringing different options that they can then explore and saying like, okay, if we say yes to this, realistically, what do we have to know no to? It's almost kind of like helping the leaders, but also the ones below, creating options and also pushing back where necessary.
Yeah. And then reality comes and, they might ask, you know what, you need to deliver the scope within Q2, and we're also going to do these two other things. But then what's going to happen is that delivery time is probably going to be skewed, or you're not going to deliver on everything, but you've raced it.
Yeah.
Right?
And not everything needs to be escalated immediately, right? Some things absolutely shouldn't wait, but there are some things that need to wait. Yeah. And when we do this consistently, you build also credibility, and credibility gives you then again influence. And people listen to you when you've got something to say.
Exactly. So we've kind of talked about more the managing up piece. Now let's talk about leading the team, because this is where many leaders get emotionally stuck.
Yeah.
And there's kind of this real risk of, if you take the message coming from above without any pushback, you can really be known as, the messenger, that you're just passing decisions down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a tough place to be. And I worked once with a leader who said to me, like, my team thinks I'm agreeing with everyone the top guys or seniors leaders tell me above, and then senior leaders think I'm fully aligned, when in reality I'm feeling like I'm acting all the time. So again, it's a tough place to be.
Yeah. And I mean, let's pause here and talk about how we work with some of these leaders to make their role as a translator more clear, because that's really what you're doing, right?
Yeah, instead of really saying that you appear to be aligned everywhere, we encourage them to be really explicit about what is decided above, what is in our control and what is still open for discussions, and where do we generally stay, or where we generally stood. That meant naming also disagreement calmly, without venting, without letting your emotions or frustrations come through, and explaining constraint without necessarily hiding behind them. Because in the end of the day, this reduces the feeling of performing and again rebuilds the trust and your own credibility. And it kind of like gives your team an authentic view of yourself.
And I do want to pause with what you just said, and I do want to simplify that a little bit. I want to give it the name so that our listener can come back to this and use this as a process or something.
A little framework, because we love a framework.
Yeah. So we'll call it map, message, move. So if you think about map, ask yourself, who is impacted by this decision? Like, who has influence over what happens next? And who needs clarity so that things don't stall? So this step is about deciding and being strategic about where you put your energy. You can't change the message necessarily, but it's more about understanding the landscape, right? And making choiceful decisions on what you do next.
Yeah, and when you think about the influence, it's just like think in influence in every direction, not just below you, not just above you. Like,
and sideways in the organization.
It was about to say, think also about sideways and outwards as well. Then the second one is about the message. So before you talk to your team or stakeholders, get really clear of what is the message you want to convey, and be really clear on three things of what is fixed, what is flexible, and where you generally have a voice, and then communicate that from that place as well. So what's fixed without apologizing, be honest about what is still open, and be really clear about where we can push back on, because this reduces an over-explaining, and it stops you from trying to please everyone. Because reality is, if you're in this position, there's always one person that you can't please with, or one person that you always agree with. So yeah.
But if you've done a good map and message, then it's easier, not easier, it's still difficult, but more effective, and you kind of had the plan on the third one, which is move. So decide what happens next. So who needs to be involved early? Think about your map. Who needs to be kept in the loop? And what is the one concrete action that really will move this forward?
Yeah, and I want to kind of like pick that up in an example, because sometimes when we have a concrete example, it's easier to get our head around in. And we want to take the example of that a senior leadership has decided to automate the monthly reporting process. And I'm sure everyone has gone through this kind of change. What used to be pulled manually from multiple systems, checked in Excel and adjusted last minute, is now going to be handled through a reporting tool. On paper, obviously, this looks more efficient, fewer errors.
But what about all of the teams that have been involved in that process, right? Because they might be thinking like, oh my God, like I'm spending X amount of time on this.
Yeah. First question is like, am I longer needed in this company, right?
Yeah.
So again, in reality, our team is thinking a lot of things like, where do I fit in this? This already takes up all of our time. How are we supposed to kind of like get the new system running, or how to learn the new system? It takes up all of our day, and like and all those questions.
How will we work from now on, right? So it's kind of this classic sandwich moment, right? So you didn't choose the system. You probably didn't choose the vendor. Maybe you were not even part of the vendor decision.
But maybe you were.
You're the one who's expected to deliver the numbers, right? Maybe it's lower cost, maybe it's efficiency in another way. Yeah. And then at the same time, you're expected to keep your team engaged throughout the change.
Yeah.
So let's walk through this in the map message move.
Yeah. So when we think about the mapping is, the first thing is about that we're asking ourselves, who's directly impacted? The analysts and controllers who currently own the reporting, especially the people who stay late at month's end to make the numbers work. Yeah. But then we're also asking ourselves, who is actually involved? It would be probably the IT department to implement the new systems, finance process orders, senior leaders who wants everything faster and cleaner reports, as well as the end users or HR possibly.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go to the second, which is the message. So remember, before you communicate, get clear on the 3 things that Catherine mentioned earlier. So what's fixed? So the reporting process will be automated. That decision is made. So that's something that you need to include in your message. And then what's flexible? Maybe it's the rollout timeline. Maybe it's how much parallel running is happening. Or maybe it's how responsibilities shift during kind of those first cycles. And then what can you influence, right? So is that in shaping the workload expectations during month end? Is it making sure that people are not expected to perform at full while they're learning a new system? And, if that is the case, then you have to manage workload expectations upwards in the organizations as well as with your team, right? But the point is you use those things to build your message to the senior leaders, to your team, and to everyone else involved.
The organization, yeah.
And that kind of clarity reduces anxiety, even if people are still skeptical,
yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't give you the guarantee that everyone is on board quite quickly, but at least it helps you to be clearer in your communication, helps you to stay authentic in your conversation, and be really able to move with integrity through this process.
Yeah.
And the third one is move. Decide on concrete action that actually move the process forward. And that could be agreeing with senior leadership that the first 2 automated reports are treated as learning cycles, not performance tests, on pulling one senior analyst into early testing so issues are getting detected really early, or it's about setting clear expectations that manual work doesn't disappear overnight, and that for a while we might need to work a little bit duplicated of running the report manually, but at the same time automating the process. Yeah. Movement, however, creates momentum and also stability. So waiting to be perfect rarely does give us clarity and progress.
Exactly. But I mean, when you explain decisions to your team, focus on the meaning and not just the task. Like, here's why it's happening. Here's what we can influence and how we're going to handle this together. You're not asking the team to like the decision. That's really important. You're not asking them to like it. You're giving them clarity so that you can move forward. And then obviously, if you can use storytelling when you deliver that message, it might land even quicker or even better. Yeah. And we have an episode on that for you.
Yeah. And let's summarize. When things are getting stuck sideways, start thinking about the human, start thinking in terms of people. Ask yourself, who really cares about this? Who has influence? And who needs to be brought in to early so things can go smoothly?
Yes. And adjust. Yeah, you said adjusting how to speak to them.
Yeah.
So I think a good rule of thumb is before you ask for anything, ask how it helps them.
Yeah.
Instead of, I need this, if we sort this by, and it's going to save you time and confusion later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also where a little bit of the self-protection comes in. Be really clear about what you own and what you don't own. You don't need to carry everyone's frustration. I think that is quite easy as a manager. You think you feel you have to solve everything, you have to feel everyone's emotion, but that's not what we're asking you to do. We want you to solve some of the tension, decide whether you can act on what needs actually escalating and what simply needs to be acknowledged and left being where it belongs.
Yeah. I mean, it's making a choice on what to do, and it's about making a conscious choice, right, on what you do. But there is a few personal boundaries that we can recommend or explain.
Yeah. And the one thing is, when leaders work and think about kind of like, what do I need to defend? What will you listen to but not absorb? And where do you need to step back in then that is actually where we need to make a difference.
Yeah, and again, it's back to that choice, right? Because when you work like this and you think about these things and you make these choices, a few things tend to happen because you choose your battles, right? When you do a conscious choice, you choose your battles and you give context instead of noise, and you build trust by being consistent and fair, even under pressure.
Yeah, and stop trying to please everyone, because
it's not possible.
That's a very losing battle. You should be focusing on being trusted, and if you act with integrity, if you act with emotional intelligence as well, then you will be able to live and sleep better at night, to be fair.
Yeah. And I mean, be kind to yourself. Like, you're probably very generous with others, so be kind to yourself as well. So I am going to give you, or we are going to give you, a simple challenge that you can try this week. So think about one situation now where you feel stuck in the middle, something that feels slow or frustrating or harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then really think about kind of like, use the map, message, move approach. So first, really map the stakeholders. Then second, think about your message. And third, think about an action that moves you forward.
Yeah, and tell us how it went. What went well? What would you have done differently? What would you like to learn more about when it comes to this? And again, your experiences can be another person's learnings.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've done this really well, and if you are someone who's really good in navigating the organization upwards, downwards, sideways, then let us know in the show notes or in the comments, because, we want to hear about all these things.
Exactly. So I do want to wrap this up. Do you have anything to add before we close?
No, I'm actually good.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that was it for today's episode of The Leadership Effect. Until that time, lead with curiosity
and courage.